The NTSB dropped several bombshells this weekend on the investigation into the D.C. plane crash of American Airlines Flight 5342 with the Blackhawk helicopter on January 29, 2025. First, we have discrepancies between the Blackhawk pilots of their altitude. Their ADS-B system was turned off, and it appears they had radio issues receiving some commands from the tower.
The portion of the transmission stating the CRJ was circling may not have been received by the Blackhawk crew.
We also have new dashcam video of the plane crash to help us determine who crashed into who, and we'll analyze the angles of both the plane and helicopter to determine the phenomenon that causes experienced pilots to miss oncoming aircraft.
At 8:39:10, Potomac approach cleared the crew of the CRJ for the Mount Vernon visual runway 1 approach. At 8:43:06, the CRJ crew made initial contact with DCA Tower. The tower controller then asked if the crew could switch to runway 33. The CRJ crew agreed to switch to runway 33. At 8:43:48, the Blackhawk was about 1.1 nautical miles west of the Key Bridge. The pilot flying indicated they were at 300 feet. The instructor pilot indicated they were at 400 feet. Neither pilot made a comment discussing an altitude discrepancy. At this time, we don't know why there was a discrepancy between the two. That's something that the investigative team is analyzing. At 8:44:27, as the Blackhawk approached the Key Bridge, the instructor pilot indicated the Blackhawk was at 300 feet, descending to 200 feet. At 8:45:30, the Blackhawk passed over the Memorial Bridge. The instructor pilot told the pilot flying that they were at 300 feet and needed to descend. The pilot flying said they would descend to 200 feet. It is now approximately 2 minutes before the collision. At 8:46:01, a radio transmission from the tower was audible on the CRJ CVR, informing the Blackhawk that traffic just south of the Wilson Bridge was a CRJ at 1,200 feet circling to runway 33. CVR data from the Blackhawk indicated that the portion of the transmission stating the CRJ was circling may not have been received by the Blackhawk crew. We hear the word circling in ATC communications, but we do not hear the word circling on the CVR of the Blackhawk. The recorders group is evaluating this right now. At 8:46:08, the Blackhawk crew responded. They had the traffic in sight and requested visual separation, which was approved by DCA Tower. At 8:46:29, the CRJ crew received a 1,000-foot automated call-out. At 8:47:27, or 32 seconds before impact, the Blackhawk passed the southern tip of Haines Point. A second later, the CRJ began a left roll to turn to final on runway 33. The CRJ was at a radio altitude of 516 feet and 133 knots. At 8:47:29, the CRJ crew received a 500-foot automated call-out. At 8:47:39, or 20 seconds before impact, a radio transmission from the tower was audible on both CVRs, asking the Blackhawk crew if the CRJ was in sight. Audible in the ATC radio transmission was a conflict alert in the background.
And one other thing, too, the air traffic controller was still right to check with the Blackhawk to see if he sees the CJR. What I want to know is if they knew that the collision avoidance alarms were going off, why didn't they just get right on the radio and tell the Blackhawk, stop right where you are, hover, or turn around and go back a little bit and wait for this plane to land? That's the part that has me really wondering and questioning this. Now, of course, we're all Monday morning quarterbacks, aren't we?
At 8:47:40, the CRJ crew received an automated traffic advisory on the TCAS system stating traffic.
And here is an actual recording of what it would have sounded like in the cockpit.
Traffic. Traffic.
Okay, TCAS now blue.
TCAS is the Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System on the CRJ.
Okay, now this is what's bothering me here about this situation. This is a big red flag for me because the TCAS system gives them that traffic alert and it says traffic, traffic. But usually it follows up with a resolution advisory, like it'll say something like climb, climb, or descend, descend. Of course, it probably wouldn't tell them descend because you're too close. You're going to crash right into the river if you try that. But it didn't say anything. And I'm surprised that the NTSB didn't say whether any kind of advisory was given. Because remember, you got 20 seconds notice. They knew something was up in the cockpit of the plane.
Traffic. Traffic.
So why did they wait until 1 second before impact before they pulled up, and then now they're pitched up 9 degrees? So that's what I'm a little bit concerned about. And nobody from the media asked any questions about this at the press conference. And why hasn't the NTSB told us, was there any resolution advisory given here?
At 8:47:42, or 17 seconds before impact, a radio transmission from the tower was audible on both CVRs, directing the Blackhawk to pass behind the CRJ. CVR data from the Blackhawk indicated that the portion of the transmission that stated pass behind the may not have been received by the Blackhawk crew. Transmission was stepped on by a 0.8 second mic key from the Blackhawk. The Blackhawk was keying the mic to communicate with ATC.
So what they're talking about here is you got two people trying to key up at the same time. Now, many years ago when I was an engineer for Motorola and we worked on radios, like, for example, like the police radios, you'll hear that, you know, when they push to talk and they get that permit tone that tells them that it's okay to talk. But I don't know what system they had there and whether it's antiquated or not, or whether it's voice controlled or what it is. But the problem is you had two people that were keying up at the same time. And so it can cancel each other out. That's the problem. And we had a similar problem here in Florida because many of you know that I live just a few miles from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, where they had that big shooting back in 2018. And the big problem they had there when all of the police started arriving is none of them could communicate with each other because their radios kept trying to cross talk over each other. And so that's how they determined that their system that they were using was so antiquated, it couldn't handle the load of numerous emergency personnel showing up and trying to communicate.
In response, at 8:47:44, the Blackhawk crew indicated that traffic was in sight and requested visual separation, which was approved by DCA Tower. The instructor pilot then told the pilot flying they believed ATC was asking for the helicopter to move left toward the east bank of the Potomac. At 8:47:52, or 7 seconds before impact, the CRJ rolled out on final for runway 33. The CRJ was at a radio altitude of 344 feet, 143 knots. At 8:47:58, or 1 second before impact, the CRJ began to increase its pitch, reaching about 9 degrees nose up at the time of collision. FDR data show the CRJ elevators were deflected near their maximum nose up travel. The last radio altitude recorded for the CRJ was 313 feet and was recorded 2 seconds prior to the collision. The CRJ pitch at this time was again 9 degrees nose up, and roll was 11 degrees left wing down. The CRJ was descending at 448 feet per minute. The radio altitude of the Blackhawk at the time of the collision was 278 feet and had been steady for the previous 5 seconds.
Pay close attention to what she just said there, because we're going to use this data point. It's a very vital data point here to help us out in a minute here when I go to show you exactly who flew into who.
Radio altitude of the Blackhawk at the time of the collision, that was 278 feet. That does not mean that's what the Blackhawk crew was seeing on the barometric altimeters in the cockpit. We are seeing conflicting information in the data, which is why we aren't releasing altitude for the Blackhawk's entire route. So the helicopter was equipped with and capable of transmitting ADSB out. We don't know why it wasn't transmitting.
I want to show you this detailed newer video that showed up. It's a dash cam video that the Washington Post had released, and it shows a different angle of the crash that maybe you haven't seen yet, but we are going to use this to determine who crashed into who. Okay, so here's the sequence. Let's take a look at it real quick, and then we'll break it down. You'll see the meat right in the middle of the screen. And so there it is in the middle of the screen there. That's where that's the beginning of the explosion. Okay, so here's where I think they shot that video from. So here's the airport. There's the runway 33. The accident happened right here. Here's where the collision occurred, right in this area. So what I believe then is if you zoom into the area, you go up here, I believe it happened in this parking lot here facing Pavilion 8. It's the only lot that I can see that has the Arnold Drive with the cars going by that we saw in the video and this building in front of it. So I think the car was parked right here in this lot and that it was pointing out this way, and it is in perfect line of sight to capture the collision right here. That's probably the closest camera to the collision. Okay, so watch the plane here on the left side of the screen. As I advance the video, you're going to see the plane come down at an angle here towards the right like this, and it's going to meet the helicopter right here and crash. But watch the distance of the plane above these two light posts right here. All right, so watch the plane. So the plane's moving, and you're going to see it going down and down. It is almost going to touch this street light right there. See, boom. And then watch it go lower and lower and lower here to the second one. I think it will actually go behind it. Let me see if I can, yeah, right there. See, it's almost at the same height. And then watch where the helicopter, see how the 2 points are coming towards each other? And I'll back it up a bit. Now watch the helicopter. The helicopter is going to emerge out of these trees right here, and it will be in a flat, level line. See, now watch the helicopter. It's going to the left, and watch its height compared to the light right there on the post, see? And it's going to be at the exact same level of the other one when it gets there, but the plane's going to meet it there, see? So the plane was going lower and lower as it goes across the screen. So that's what I'm trying to show you here, is that the helicopter did not aim towards the plane. It looks more like the plane aimed down towards the helicopter because the plane was in its left-hand banking turn at this point in time. And the plane is also dropping in altitude. It was probably at about 400 feet back over here, maybe even 500 feet. And it comes all the way down to like 300 and change right here as it's making that final left-hand turn into the runway 33. See, and that's where they meet right there. So the plane came down to meet the helicopter at its level. The helicopter did not rise up to meet the plane at its level. However, we do know the helicopter was not supposed to be at 300 feet at this point in time because this is Route 4 right along this corridor here, and the helicopter should have only been at 200 feet. Right at the airport, you're at 200 feet. So transitioning from Route 1 right here to Route 4, which is what the helicopter was doing, the Blackhawk is still required to maintain altitude at 200 feet max. That is their ceiling. Okay. And then it's the same 200 feet all the way down and another 200 feet down here. And then when you finally hit the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, 5 miles south of the airport, they're allowed to go up to 300 feet. Now, why is that? Because by the time the planes are over here, they're up at 1,300 feet, anywhere 1,300 to 15, 16, 1,700 feet. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken a screenshot from that dash cam video, and we do know that 10 seconds before the impact, the plane was at 400 feet. So here it is entering the screen here on the side. And so what I did was I put this level line here just to mark where it goes. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to follow the plane as it comes along here. And somewhere in this area here, it's going to crash into the helicopter 10 seconds later. What I want to do here is see which of the two aircraft deviates from its level flight path right here. So if we go to the next slide that I made here, what I did here is I took the data points that the NTSB gave us at the Valentine's Day update. It was on February 14th, 7 seconds before impact. the plane was at 344 feet, traveling at 143 knots. So it's already been descending here. And it's going to keep descending along on this line. And the last reading that the NTSB has on the plane is right here, 313 feet at 143 knots, most likely the same speed. And this was about 2 seconds before the impact. And then the impact happens right here at the very, right, you can see it's happening at the very beginning of the explosion is right there. So this, from the time, when we look at the video, the time it took for the airplane to go from here to here, point of impact, was 10 seconds. So now I did the same thing for the Blackhawk, the Pat-25, and you can see he enters the screen right here from behind the tree, and he is at 278 feet for 5 seconds before the impact, which is going to happen right in here somewhere. So the NTSB explained on the update on February 14th that the Blackhawk right here was at 278 feet for 5 seconds before the impact. So they know that much at least.
The radio altitude of the Blackhawk at the time of the collision was 278 feet and had been steady for the previous 5 seconds.
And that pretty much jives with what we've seen in the video. So I've got the line going all the way across the screen here. And let me make this other slide here for you. So here's the point of impact, right? And that line was textbook perfect. So the helicopter, the Blackhawk, did not deviate from that elevation. It was at 278 feet. It's still too high. He's supposed to be no higher than 200. But at least we know that he stayed level here. This shows that the Blackhawk did not like point upward and start aiming for the plane. In fact, it was the plane that came down and unintentionally was aiming for the Blackhawk, as you can see here. Now, of course, the plane has the right of way, so it's not the plane's fault. You can't say, well, the plane caused this. It's not the fault of the plane, but the plane did descend into the path of the Blackhawk as it was traveling at 278 feet off the ground. So this should dispel all of the conspiracy theories where the people were saying, well, the Blackhawk helicopter was aimed right for the plane. And well, no, this clearly shows that it wasn't. It was just traveling straight here, and then the plane went right into it.
Now, at this point, what we really can't tell with all certainty is, did the plane come down like this and hit the helicopter, like from the top of it? Or did the plane come down like this and then just happen to be in front of the helicopter, and then the helicopter slammed into the plane and went through the plane? So we have some evidence here that we want to take a look at.
And so looking at the debris of the American Airlines Flight 5342 in the water right here, there's the CRJ, the pieces of it. And it was really basically, let's see, the tail looks like that's it right here. This looks like it's probably the section right in front of the tail. And then as we swing around here to look, you can see right here, that appears to be the right wing. There's the flaps. This is the right wing, and this is the fuselage. So it looks to me like the right wing is still attached to the plane. And so looking at the damage here, it looks like most likely the Blackhawk either sliced through the plane right here aft of the wing, or it sliced through the plane over here before the wing. So who knows, maybe the helicopter hit right back here behind the wing, or it hit here in front of the wing. But it looks from the footage, but it looks like from the security cam footage of the crash that you could still see, like here's the landing lights. It looked like the landing lights were still on. So at least on the right wing, that's for sure. So if the Blackhawk hit the plane back here behind the wing, all of these people here would have been killed instantly, right? Because it basically sheared right through the plane. And then, of course, if it hit in front of the plane, then all of these people here would have likely have been killed instantly. And then we know that these rotors must have hit something before the front of the helicopter did. Yeah, so likely there was some type of slicing action going on here. And when the NTSB had hauled up the CJR out of the water and were checking it out in the hangar, you can see there off to the right in the background the fuselage with what looks like to be the right wing attached to it. So here the NTSB gives us a much clearer shot, and there you can see the jet engine lying there on the floor. But look, there's a better shot of the fuselage with the right wing and the landing gear still attached to it. And there's a closer shot of it there. So I'm willing to bet that the Blackhawk helicopter sliced through it behind the wing. That would be my primary hypothesis, unless I see some other type of evidence to the contrary. Okay, now here's something else that I wanted to show you from the airport surveillance camera video. This is those two exclusive videos that CNN got, and this is what those airport employees got fired over for giving out these videos. But I wanted to show you something here. So as we look at the airplane, notice right here before the crash, you can perfectly see the landing lights facing us. I still don't see why they can't see it, because the airplane is far to their left at this point. So they should, even though the plane is banking, the Blackhawk should still be able to see these. In fact, you can even see it reflecting off the water. But see this little light right here to the left of the big blob of light from the plane? That's likely the light on its wing. And watch, you can see it. You can see it flashing. See? It's blinking. And so as the helicopter gets up to it, this is why I still don't see how they couldn't have seen even the blinking light, because when the helicopter was back here, the plane is descending. So the plane would have been up and to their left, and there's nothing there. There's no other distracting lights that their night vision goggles would have seen. So that's why I'm not entirely certain that it was just because there was distraction from the city background lights. But anyway, watch what happens when the helicopter gets right there, and keep in mind, you can still see that light on the wing, and then there's the helicopter. So as the Blackhawk gets right up to it, watch this. See right there? I can see that I can still see the light of the wing, which says to me that I think the Blackhawk is behind the wing at this point. See that? And then we'll take it in a little bit, just a couple more frames, and you can see that something is ejecting out the right side of the plane over here. And sorry, I forgot to turn off CNN's audio. As the explosion is finished and the plane is up here and the helicopter is going to emerge out of this cloud, I want to show you something about the helicopter. So right there, you see that red light that just came on? That's the red light on the helicopter. So everything's still working on the helicopter, believe it or not. After colliding into that plane, and the helicopter was likely going about 110. But anyway, watch, the helicopter is right here, black. You can see it, and it's going down. Now watch that light blink again. There it goes. It blinked again, and it blinked again. And so right there, you can see the landing lights for the helicopter are still on. And as it tumbles down into, it just blinked again right there. See, there's that light. And then finally, right as it's splashing down, it blinks one last time as it's hitting the water. That was just amazing. Now, I want to take a look at what the plane's doing. So note that after the explosion, the helicopter is already way over here, and the landing gear lights are still on. And the landing lights on the plane are still on at this point. Now watch this. The plane is coming down here. Okay, so what we have here is the plane with the wings are going like this. So I think that it still has both of its wings on at this point in time, and the landing lights are still on. So follow the plane down. Here's the plane here, and I believe it might even be upside down because one of these wings is about to fall off. Yeah, no, it's rotating. That's what it's cartwheeling, and it's going to go straight down into the water from there. But look, even as it's coming down to the water, the landing lights are still on, and you can see the reflection off the water. But it's going straight down into the water. Okay, so I did another one of my calculations here. So if it's falling from a height of about 325 feet, we use our free fall equation, and you plug in height, and you plug in gravity, and you get your calculation that it takes it 4.49 seconds to fall. So assuming the people who didn't die on the plane from the initial contact with the helicopter, they were probably dead 5 or 6 seconds later after that, because you're not going to survive crashing into the water. And at what speed was it? Well, I sort of use the reverse of this equation here.
and look at it, and about 98.6 miles per hour, so pretty close to 100 miles per hour. And again, we're assuming that there's no other aerodynamic effects, and we don't know what any vertical component of the downward force of the plane would have been at that point, because remember, it's just about getting ready to land, like in a few seconds. So there's probably not a huge amount of downward slope at that point. So I think this is a good assumption to know that they hit the water at 100 miles per hour.
Okay, so how did the people on the plane die then? Well, when you have an accident like that and you're going at 100 miles an hour and you go from 100 miles an hour to zero in no time flat, it's internal injuries that kill you. And so what happens is your heart just pretty much rips from your aorta. And that's likely what happened to everybody, or the neck snapped. Now let's look at the second video here that CNN gets from the airport. Now watch this. Take a look at the helicopter as it passes under the wing there. You see that? So it looks like it's either under it or behind the wing, but it doesn't appear to be obscuring the wing. That's at least from what I can tell there. So that's why I think it clipped the back end of the plane behind the wing, because remember, we could still see the landing lights. And right here, it looks like the wing is obscuring the Blackhawk, doesn't it? I wish we had some clearer video. Or, you know what? The original version of this is probably clearer because whoever shot this video was probably standing there with their cell phone shooting it off of the screen. And then as we try to get a clearer shot, there's another good clear shot of the airplane coming down with the landing lights still operating right up until the second it hits the water. Even the lights on the wings, you can see it, right? Look at that. But it was definitely cartwheeling. And I believe it lost its wing during the cartwheeling as well. Now, many people are trying to explain off why the Blackhawk didn't see the CJR. They're saying that, well, it saw American Airlines Flight 3130 way in the background behind the CJR, 3 miles behind it. But I'm not so sure I'm buying that story, because if you didn't see the CJR, you're sure as heck not going to see a plane that's 3 miles behind it. There is another phenomenon here. So I learned about this when I was in photography in high school, is that when you're shooting action shots of athletes and you want to get them running at you because for some reason it stops the action, but if they were running across you like this, you would see a blur. I want to show you this video here from Pilot Debrief. Hoover, you got to check out his channel. He's great. He does all of the plane crashes, the small plane crashes and everything. But check out this video he put out 2 years ago. It's a small short.
See that white dot? That's an airplane that's about to take off, and this is probably one of the only places in the world where a commercial airliner is going to take off right over the top of you. You can see the warnings for danger blast area, but yet cars are driving right past because there's a road at the end of the runway here. This is a very popular tourist destination that I highly recommend checking out if you get a chance. It's down in Maho Beach in St. Martin.
There is another phenomenon here. So I learned about this when I was in photography in high school, is that when you're shooting action shots of athletes and you want to get them running at you because for some reason it stops the action, but if they were running across you like this, you would see a blur. I want to show you this video here from Pilot Debrief. Hoover, you got to check out his channel. He's great. He does all of the plane crashes, the small plane crashes and everything. But check out this video he put out 2 years ago. It's a small short.
See that white dot? That's an airplane that's about to take off, and this is probably one of the only places in the world where a commercial airliner is going to take off right over the top of you. You can see the warnings for danger blast area, but yet cars are driving right past because there's a road at the end of the runway here. This is a very popular tourist destination that I highly recommend checking out if you get a chance. It's down in Maho Beach in St. Martin.
Now check out this phenomenon. It's a dot, it's a dot, it's a dot. You don't see it until all of a sudden you get about 2 seconds warning and bam. So it's amazing how that phenomenon works, and it tricks you. Another interesting phenomenon similar along these lines is, why do people drive into things that they're trying to avoid? So a big problem that we've had here in Florida, in fact, they've made laws against it now, is like when the police have somebody pulled over, why do people always smack into the back of the cop cars? It's just unbelievable. And they always smack into the back of a parked truck on the road and die, even though there's no other truck before or after them for 10 miles. Why does that happen? So we have a law here in Florida that says we have to move over a lane whenever cops have somebody pulled over, because this is what happened. So that is the ultimate mystery to solve right there, is why do objects seemingly out in the middle of nowhere get hit all the time? Well, if you missed my last couple of videos from the DC plane crash, you can check this one out here. And also, if you did not see any of the videos from the Philadelphia Medjet plane crash, make sure you see this one over here. This one was incredible analysis there for you. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see all of you on the next one.